My name is Damian Roth. I'm 45 years old, and for 6 relentless years, I was the driving force behind Harrison Tech Solutions' global expansion. While many of my colleagues remain comfortable in Manhattan offices, buried in spreadsheets and boardroom meetings, I was halfway across the world, closing multi-million-dollar deals in Singapore, navigating high-stakes negotiations in Sao Paulo, and nurturing international partnerships that would secure our company's future. I wasn't just another suit representing a corporation. I was a face clients trusted, the name they remembered, the one who understood that true business isn't built on numbers, but on trust, reliability, and being present when it matters most. My clients didn't invest in a product. They invested in me. A handshake from me carried the weight of a signed contract. 6 exhausting years. I sacrificed everything. Endless 14-hour days, countless red-eye flights, missed anniversaries and family dinners, answering midnight calls from Tokyo hotel rooms, all to transform a domestic firm into a global powerhouse with revenues surpassing $250 million annually. And yet, on February 18, 2024, everything I had given, every mile traveled and promise kept, was repaid with a level of humiliation I never saw coming. I was in Dubai, proudly representing Harrison Tech at the Global Innovation Summit, an elite gathering where the world's top tech leaders celebrated groundbreaking innovation. The Burj Al Arab's golden reflection shimmered across the Persian Gulf as I straightened my Navy Brooks Brothers suit, preparing for what I believed would be a defining moment. Our AI-enhanced supply chain platform had been nominated for excellence in enterprise solutions, and I was there to accept the honor, a recognition built largely on the 4 major international clients I had personally secured. The evening radiated prestige. Crystal chandeliers scattered prismatic light over tables adorned with white orchids, while industry titans in tailored suits and designer gowns discussed blockchain evolution and emerging AI frontiers. I was seated at table 7, strategically close to the stage. To my left sat Amir Halawi, the formidable billionaire CEO of Crescent Digital, our fiercest Middle Eastern competitor. We had never met, but his reputation preceded him. Calculating, sharp, a man who turned weakness into leverage. Mr. Roth, he greeted, extending a firm hand. I've heard impressive things about Harrison Tech's expansion under your leadership. I replied evenly. The respect is mutual. Crescent's growth in this region has been remarkable. Despite being rivals, there was unspoken recognition between us. Real leaders know quality when they see it. The night progressed smoothly with speeches, applause, and polished conversations over champagne. At 9:47 p.m. Dubai time, 1:47 p.m. in New York, my phone vibrated with a message I nearly ignored. It was from Richard Harrison, our CEO, the man who had hired me 6 years earlier. I expected a congratulation, maybe a reminder from Monday's briefing. Instead, I read 8 words that shattered everything. Effective immediately, your employment is terminated. HR will contact you. I stare at the screen, reading it once, twice, 3 times. No explanation, no gratitude, no human voice, just a cold dismissal delivered by text while I stood as the company's representative on a global stage. The champagne in my hand turned acrid. Around me, laughter and applause blurred into distant static. My first instinct was fury. Call Richard, demand answers, make a scene, but years in international business had taught me the most valuable rule: never react emotionally, especially when you don't yet understand the game being played. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, face composed. Everything all right? Amir asked, eyeing me curiously. Just business back home. I lied. Nothing that can't wait. But inside, it felt like reading my own obituary while still breathing. Moments later, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Jessica from HR, a 26-year-old MBA who joined long after me, yet now held the authority to sever my ties. Hi, Damian. I know this is unexpected. Richard asked me to manage your transition. Your corporate cards will be deactivated by midnight EST. And just like that, 6 years of loyalty had been reduced to policy and procedure. Please arrange your own flight home and submit receipts for reimbursement. Your final paycheck will reflect and use vacation days minus the recovery of any company equipment. All client contacts and proprietary information remain confidential per your original agreement. Let me know if you have questions." The clinical coldness of it was almost impressive. 6 years of work reduced to a checklist of administrative tasks, a sterile set of instructions with no acknowledgement of late nights, missed birthdays, or deals closed at 3 a.m. No mention of my contributions, my sacrifices, or even basic human decency. Just corporate damage control delivered through a 26-year-old who probably made $68,000 a year and had never lived the negotiations I had lived. I scanned the room at the gala. Executives who had built empires, entrepreneurs who'd upended industries, leaders who understood loyalty and long games, and then back at my phone at the message from a man who'd tossed away his most valuable asset via text while I represented his company on an international stage. Clarity hit me like the dry desert wind outside. This wasn't merely a firing. It was Richard Harrison making the stupidest business decision of his career at the worst possible moment, and he had no idea what he'd set in motion. I turned to Amir Holloway, the billionaire beside me, and said with a controlled calm that concealed a storm, "Mr. Holloway, I'd like to share something with you I think you'll find very interesting from a business perspective." He set down his wine glass and leaned in, the kind of full attention you only get when someone senses opportunity. "In our industry, when a senior executive says they have something very interesting to share, you listen," he said. 30 minutes earlier, I'd received a text. I kept my voice steady as I told him I was just terminated from Harrison Tech, via text, while here representing the company. He raised an eyebrow. It was curious, then predatory, as if a chessboard had just been rearranged in his favor. "It gets better," I continued. No warning, no discussion, no transition plan, just HR instructions to book my own flight home. I showed him the messages. He read them slowly, expressions shifting from surprise to calculation. "May I ask why?" he asked. "I honestly don't know," I replied, allowing silence to press at the edges. Then I offered a theory: nepotism. Richard's nephew Trevor, a recent Wharton grad, had been shadowing departments for months, an easy scapegoat and an even easier replacement. Amir absorbed this, eyes narrow with the precise hunger of a man who built a billion-dollar empire by recognizing when others bled and knowing how to profit from it. "Tell me about your client relationships," he said quietly. "Confidential, of course," I answered. But Harrison Tech's Middle East revenue grew from 0 to $38 million under my tenure. Most of those clients have personal ties to me, not to the corporate letterhead, and the leadership assumes those bonds will transfer easily. He paused on the word "assumes," and the small smile that followed was not social. It was a smile of a shark smelling blood. "Mr. Roth," he said, "we should continue this tomorrow. Are you free for lunch?" I had been unemployed for 30 minutes. My calendar was suddenly wide open. "I'd be delighted," I said. The rest of the night blurred. Forced congratulations, handshakes with colleagues who didn't yet know I'd been discarded, the tinsel of an awards gala dimmed by a private humiliation. Yet beneath the surface the shame hardened into something colder. A strategic resolve that replaced wounded pride with calculated intent. Richard had made a catastrophic mistake. He'd thrown away his most valuable asset at the worst possible moment, and in front of the worst possible person. And I was already sketching the first moves of a plan that would make him rue that misstep. The next morning, February 19th, I woke in my suite at Atlantis with peculiar calm. My corporate card was dead as promised, but I'd shifted enough personal funds to cover the stay. For the first time in years, I didn't rush for my inbox or prepare for a morning call. Instead, I ordered shakshuka and thick Arabic coffee, let the sunlight pool warm and gold across the room, and began a list, not of grievances, but clinical, ruthless assessment of Harrison Tech's vulnerabilities. Contract clauses, client reliance points, unpaid vendor leverage, technical dependencies, and the personal loyalties that could be, with careful care, redirected. 6 years of building their international presence had given me an intimate understanding of every fault line buried beneath their polished exterior, every hidden weakness in their corporate armor. At noon, I met Amir at Nobu in Atlantis, the Palm, where floor-to-ceiling windows framed the vast shimmer of the Arabian Gulf. Yet neither of us paid attention to the view. His focus, like mine, was fixed entirely on the conversation unfolding between us. "I've been thinking about our discussion last night," he began after we'd ordered, his tone calm but edged with strategic interest. Your situation presents some very interesting possibilities. I leaned forward slightly. I'm listening. He nodded. Harrison Tech's Middle East operation relies heavily on personal relationships. Correct, I said. My personal relationships. In this region, business is not just a transaction. It's a commitment built on trust, consistency, and loyalty. Clients don't buy software. They buy the people who stand behind it. And these clients have contract with Harrison Tech. Not you personally, he noted. Yes, I acknowledged. But contracts come with renewal dates, performance clauses, and termination conditions. Most of our major accounts are on 2-year agreements, set to renew between now and December. A slow, knowing smile crossed his face. Tell me about the renewal process. Standard procedure was that I would initiate discussions 120 days in advance. Reestablish value, anticipate concerns, negotiate terms. Without that relationship management, I let silence finish the sentence. They're vulnerable, he concluded. Extremely vulnerable, I confirmed, and Richard just removed their only safeguard in this market. Amir leaned forward, eyes sharp. What would you say to joining Crescent Digital as our new director of strategic partnerships for Western markets? I had anticipated this offer, but hearing it aloud carried a different weight. What exactly would that entail? Leading our expansion into North America and Europe, he replied. Developing client relationships, establishing the international presence Harrison believes it still controls. He paused carefully. Salary, $400,000 annually, plus equity and performance bonuses. My salary at Harrison had been $280,000. This wasn't just an offer. It was a declaration. There's something else, Amir added. I want you to start immediately, as in tomorrow, before you return to New York. I raised an eyebrow. Why return to New York? Your influence is more valuable here, where you understand both the culture and the market. We'll handle everything, relocation, visa, housing. The strategy crystallized with elegant brutality. While Harrison Tech floundered, I would build competitive leverage from inside the very territory they believed they controlled. Legal, surgical, devastating. I accept, I said. That afternoon, I began my new role with precision. Not by calling Harrison's clients. That would be unethical, but by contacting industry partners, suppliers, and neutral stakeholders. Hi, this is Damian Roth. I've joined Crescent Digital as Director of Strategic Partnerships, looking forward to exploring new collaborations. In industries like ours, rumor travels faster than fact. By Thursday, February 21st, 3 separate contacts reached out with unsolicited insights. Heard Harrison Tech is having transition issues in the Middle East, one supplier said casually. Trevor Harrison called yesterday asking about compliance, another whispered. Didn't seem familiar with regulations. A third added, your replacement asked about the Dubai implementation. Nice kid, but had no grasp of the technical specs. I hadn't asked for any of this. I didn't solicit damage. I merely existed, and the industry's informal network delivered the rest. By Friday, February 22nd, the pattern was clear. Harrison Tech was scrambling. Trevor had been thrown into deep waters without even knowing how to tread. Client calls were mishandled. Technical discussions stalled. Renewals were postponed or ignored. Meanwhile, I settled into Crescent Digital's Dubai office, immersing myself in their systems, earning trust, and preparing to build in the West what I had once built in the East. Amir had been right. My value here was greater than Harrison ever understood. On Sunday, February 24th, exactly 1 week after my termination, my former assistant Sarah called. She had been at Harrison 9 years. For those directly under me, Damian, I hope you don't mind me calling, she said softly. I got your number from your LinkedIn update. Of course not, I replied. How are things? She hesitated. Honestly? Chaotic. Trevor is trying, but he's sinking. Richard is demanding answers as clients stop returning calls. The Bahrain project is frozen. No one understands compliance. That's unfortunate. I said, careful to remain neutral. There's more, she added. For clients asked specifically about you. When they learned you'd left, They requested immediate meetings to discuss their options. I felt a cold, measured satisfaction, but kept my tone professional. I'm sure Trevor will find his footing. Maybe, she said. But, Damien, I'm considering my own future. This place isn't the same without leadership. After we ended the call, I stood at my new office window, watching the sun pour molten gold over the Burj Khalifa. Richard Harrison believed he had eliminated a cost. Instead, he had empowered his fiercest competitor, fractured his client base, and destabilized his own foundation. He had no idea that the true consequences had only just begun. All while I was building a new career in one of the world's most dynamic tech markets, I realized that revenge didn't require sabotage or bitterness. It was unfolding naturally through excellence. I didn't need to break any rules or seek payback. All I had to do was excel in my new role while Harrison Tech slowly discovered the true cause of their decision. Just 3 weeks into my position at Crescent Digital in early March, industry whispers began to surface. It started with a call from Ahmad Rashid, CEO of Gulf Logistics Solutions, Harrison Tech's largest Middle East client with a $12 million annual contract. I had personally negotiated their implementation 2 years earlier, and our professional bond had been built on trust and consistency. Damien, I heard you moved to Crescent Digital, he said casually. I confirmed, expressing my excitement for new opportunities. He hesitated before admitting. We've been having concerns with our current provider. The new contact lacks regional understanding, and response times have declined. I listened calmly, never speaking ill of Harrison Tech, only asking thoughtful questions about their current needs and future plans. By the end of the call, he requested a proposal to migrate their operations to Crescent Digital. We value consistency and expertise, he said. Those qualities seem to have followed you. 2 days later, Marina Petrov from Black Sea Shipping echoed the same concerns. Then David Kim from Asia Pacific Manufacturing. Then Roberto Santos from Latin American Trade Solutions. The pattern was undeniable. Harrison Tech service had weakened since my departure, and clients were seeking the standards they once relied on. I hadn't pursued them. They sought out the quality they had lost. Meanwhile, Sarah, still at Harrison Tech, shared occasional updates, not through disloyalty, but out of frustration and honesty. Richard is worried, she told me in late March. 2 major clients are looking elsewhere. Trevor can't understand why, and Richard is demanding to know what you did to turn them against us. She told him the truth. I hadn't done anything to them. I had done everything for them, and now that was gone. The most revealing moment arrived in early April, when Richard Harrison himself called me. After 6 years of working together, and after firing me by text, his voice now carried forced friendliness. I hope there are no hard feelings. Business decisions, you understand? I remained composed. Of course, Richard. I wish you and Trevor the best. He hesitated. Some Middle East clients are experiencing transition issues. Maybe you could help, perhaps in a consulting role. The audacity was staggering. Fire me via text, then ask me to clean up the consequences. I appreciate the offer, I said evenly, but I'm fully committed to Crescent Digital. I'm sure Trevor will manage. He fumbled through another plea, hinting at generous compensation, but I declined. When the call ended, I realized he had finally understood what he had lost, 7 weeks too late. By April, the damage was visible. Harrison Tech was floundering in the Middle East, struggling without regional insight, and major clients were openly seeking alternatives. Meanwhile, Crescent Digital's expansion was surpassing every expectation. 3 major North American contracts secured, European markets entered, and strategic partnerships forming. Amir had been right. My expertise was perfectly aligned for global impact. The final chapter came in late July 2024, 5 months after my termination. Sarah called with the news. Harrison Tech had been acquired by a German consortium at 70% of its former market value. Richard is staying on as a regional manager, she said. Most senior staff are being let go. I've already accepted a new position. I told her I was happy she'd found something better. It's actually exciting, she said. Sometimes losing what you think is security opens doors to something greater. She was unknowingly describing my journey. That evening, I stood on my balcony overlooking the shimmering lights of Dubai Marina, reflecting on how a single impulsive decision, firing a loyal employee to make room for nepotism, had set off a chain reaction that cost Richard his company's independence. I hadn't orchestrated his downfall. I had simply continued to thrive in an environment that valued integrity and competence. The revenge was poetic in its simplicity. Success in place of bitterness. My phone buzzed. A message from Amir. Board approved your promotion to VP of Global Expansion. Congratulations. Well deserved. I smiled, replying with calm gratitude. Just 5 months earlier, I had been humiliated in a room full of industry leaders. Now I was a vice president at one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the region, living in a city of ambition, holding equity worth more than I had ever imagined. Richard Harrison had taught me a powerful lesson. Sometimes the best revenge is letting arrogance destroy itself while you build something greater. Loyalty, expertise, professionalism aren't just virtues. They are foundations of lasting success. When leaders forget that, consequences become inevitable, and sometimes those consequences write the perfect ending to someone else's story.